Hello, I'm Hypnotoad from Java Server, and today we're going to be looking at UnitCapture, which is a new function put into ArmA, Operation Arrowhead, and it's basically a little thing that allows you to fly a helicopter, record its flight path, and then have the AI fly it back perfectly. Now, this is useful for things like transport helicopters and a couple of things like attack runs, as it allows the AI to fly in a way that it would normally not be able to, such as nap of the earth flying and proper landings, such as rooftop landings and in enclosed spaces where it'd usually just crash. Okay, so we're going to start off pretty basic run through. Just going to try and go into a lot more detail than some of the other ways of doing it. So, what I want you to do is just boot up Operation Arrowhead. I'm going to be using a couple of the DLC packs, in this case a map called Proving Grounds in the PMC DLC, simply because it's such a small map. You can obviously use whatever map you want, whatever helicopter. So, if you go into the editor, choose your map, you'll be presented with the regular mission screen. In this case, I'm going to be using a little bird. So, as usual, just F1 is your units, double click. Blue 4, so we're using the US guys. Faction US, class Air, and it is the MH6J. Okay, so we want this to be our player for the recording, and it needs to be flying, so I don't have to take off partway through. Now, you're going to have to name all the units. In this case, I'm going to go with a pretty simple name, which is just Heli1. Make sure it's something you can remember for later. Okay? And okay that. You've basically now just created your helicopter that you can fly around, do whatever you want with. So, for the realism purposes, we're going to have just a transport chopper today, because I've not really got the firing of the choppers working out every single time, but the helicopter transport side does. So, we're going to add a co-pilot into this helicopter. Okay? To do this, double click again, spawn a blue 4 US men, and find just a, in this case, a pilot. We're going to call this guy Man1, and he is basically going to be in the chopper with us. See, he's automatically grouped, so if you ungroup him, so you don't get the annoying radio chatter, and just have him go into his initialization line and just type in Man1, move in cargo, Heli1, semicolon. This is basically a little bit of just script that'll put the Man1, this guy, move him into the cargo of the helicopter, which is the co-pilot seat, and just stick him right in there. So that's that done. Then you need to set up your guy who's going to be riding on the outrider boards. So in this case, men again, but I'm going to go for a special forces and make him a marksman. In this case, we're going to drop a guy on top of a roof to do a bit of sniping. So we're going to just call this guy Man 2. No spaces. And as before, just Man 2, move in cargo. You'll see you get the tooltips. Obviously the code actually does self-comment as it comes up, so you can tab through to get what you need. Heli 1. Okay, so that's set up. And you can ungroup those two as well, using the F2 and just drag off the guy to ungroup. Yep, right. That's your basic setup, then that when you play this mission you will have a heli with two guys in it. Next, we need to do a little bit of the background work. For this, we need to go into F7, which is modules. Now, if you just work below, you need to spawn the module that is called functions. This is basically a module that provides a load of pre-recorded functions made by BAS, the guys that made this game, and they are like a load of little scripts that are pre-built in, so you don't have to write them yourself. Very useful for some of the more advanced things that are going on, such as this playback script. Okay, next we're going to need some triggers, two in particular. So if you go F3, which is triggers, double click. Now just for neatness, I set the axis to 0, so it just appears as a flag. Now the activation, to start the recording of your helicopter flight, we're just going to use a radio call. So it's radio alpha under activation. This means once you've pressed this, it will start recording. Now I'm not going to put it on repeatedly, because when I'm recording I either do it or I crash, so I have to restart the mission either way. So radio alpha, leave everything else as the preset. Okay. Then on the activation we need to type in just a little bit of code that'll set this thing going. Okay. So in this case we're just going to type rec equals, this is a recording, and what we need is to go name our heli, so heli1. Next, we need to say how long we're going to record for before it automatically cuts out. I'm going for 200 seconds because that should be plenty. And next, we just need to type in spawn, and the function in this case is bis underscore fnc function unit capture. Now notice I've used capitals. Make sure they're in there. Okay? So that's all you need on the on-act line for your recording actuator. Okay? So that's your trigger setup. Now for your second trigger, this is going to be the one that plays it back. Even though we've not written the script yet, it's good to put it all in so I don't have to do 2 takes, alt-tabbing in and out. So if we go radio Bravo, same as before, just set everything to 0. There we go. And on active this one, we want to go rec equals square brackets, but just closed, empty. Then spawn MyPath. Okay, the path is going to be a script file we're going to create outside of the game from the stuff that we make on the recording inside. So just bear with me on that one because that will be a variable that's identified in the code. Okay, so that's pretty much everything you need inside the editor. Okay, what we need to do now is just save our mission. So if you go save, type in whatever you want. I'm just going to call this landing just for simplicity. Okay, and that will create the folders in the backing that we need to go put 2 scripts in now. Okay, our mission will be stored under My Documents, ArmA 2, Missions, and then that's the previous one, but in this case it's called landing.provinggrounds.pmc. Proving Grounds PMC is obviously the map name. Now this SQM file is our mission file. You don't really want to mess with that too much, so just leave that it is. Now, we need to create 2 script files, the first one of which is going to be our initialization file, which is basically a script that is run before the mission is even started. So we want to put things like variables we want to reference in there, anything we want to do before the mission actually starts, like your pre-prep, and a couple of things like your mission startup. But in this case, we're just going to create a couple of, well, just one variable. So just create a new text document. It's a messy way of doing it, but you basically need to create an SQF. So in this case, we just want to create, we referenced MyPath before. So our MyPath variable is going to be equals compile preprocessFile path.sqf. Oh, that should be in things. Close it off. Now, this basically means MyPath, which is when it's going to be referenced in ArmA, that's a variable, will be to compile the preprocessor file, which is path.sqf. The path.sqf is going to be the document that contains the details of our flight path. So this will just put that into ArmA before the thing starts. So if we just go save as, and save this as, just put it as init.sqf. Okay? If you just save that, close it, and you can delete that text document if you've done it the way I did. You can also create it just brand new, and you should have the init file there. Okay, now we just want to create the framework for our playback script. Now for this, just another text file, and we want this to be, if you just put path1, path1 equals, and then a semicolon. In between the equals and the semicolon is where we're going to put our path data. Underneath that, we just need to create the calling thing, so when this script is called up in the game, it'll tell it to heli1, which is our helicopter, path1, which is our current bit of script above it, and it will play back that, and we say we want to spawn, which is like another name for run, our bis underscore func, that's just fnc, UnitPlay. Okay, so that'll do the unit play rather than the unit record. So that'll play back our path that we're going to put in there. Okay, so if you just save as, and save that as our path, so just path.sqf, save. Okay, and you can delete your old document. So you've got the init, the mission, and the path in there now. This is basically the bare bones. You can actually go into a lot more detail in these. So what we need to do now is we need to record our flight path, and then I'll show you how to do that. Okay? Right, So back in the game, we need to record the flight path for our helicopter. Now this is where it gets very fun because I'm not very good at flying. So we need to basically record a path. I'll show you how to start the recording, how to end the recording. Okay? So if we just do a preview, you can see that I'm in a little bird above proving grounds. Obviously we've got the external view. You can see that we've got our co-pilot in there. See him and our outrider. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press 0, 0, 1, which will start the recording. That's the radio call for alpha that we set up earlier in our trigger. Now you can see in the top right it's starting the capture. Now at this point you want to fly your heli. As I said, I'm not very good at this, but obviously flying after the Earth like I'm trying to do now, the AI would have crashed ages ago. So it's obviously a distinct advantage over the default loadout. So what we want to do is come up, power down, and try and just put it down on this roof. Obviously if you're a more skilled pilot than me, you could do this in half the time. Okay. Then we want to wait, say a couple of seconds, where the guys obviously would get off. Obviously you're going to be playing the infantry in this, the AI would be flying the heli. Then once you've given it a bit of time, take off, spin, and leave the area. Obviously you've got to get the helicopter out of sight pretty far, so you might want to fly it a lot further distance than I'm doing. But obviously you might probably be doing this on the Takistan map rather than the small map, so you'd have a lot further to get out of distance. Now, the script, well, the recording will end after either one of the preset variables, which in this case was what, 200 seconds, or until you press escape twice. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to find somewhere to land this thing. Try and put down a bit lighter than that. Oh, I broke it anyway. It doesn't really matter. And then you can just press escape and escape again. And it will say on the right it's got your data. And what you want to do is you want to press F1. Okay, that'll copy the data to the clipboard. Right, once you've alt-tabbed to the desktop, you need to paste your path information. So open up your path file and paste it in between the equals and the semicolon. You will get a wall of text, which is basically the coordinates of the flight path. Okay, so don't be worried about that. Just save that file and close it. Okay, now obviously we've got pretty much everything we need, and all we need to do now is test it to see if it works. Okay, so let's go. Okay, now we're back in the editor. What we need to do is set our guy to be the outrider. So in this case we set it the player to be the Special Forces marksman, and we preview the mission. Okay, that sets up our guy. As you can see, we're flying. We've got the co-pilot and pilot. I'm sat on the outrider board with my DMR, and what we want to do is we want to start the trigger to get this thing flying. So Alpha was our record, Bravo is our play. So hit that, chopper resets to the position it started at, and off we go. As you can see, this was done by a trigger. You can also have it set in the initialization, so it plays straight away as soon as the mission starts, so you don't have to set up a trigger for it. You can have it do that in the player initialization as well. As you can see, compared to the AI, you can fly these things ridiculously low. An AI would have ploughed into the ground a long time ago. But the main problem with this is there is a bit of external stutter when you're looking at it compared to the natural flight. But it's completely acceptable really when you are in first person and you consider what the AI would have done in this situation. Mainly just ploughed us straight into the building, or with ridiculous flares. As you can see, I can just hop out here, get to my settle point, and just watch as the chopper takes off. Obviously you can see that in this case I've done it as a manual get out because I was going to use this in the co-op mission. But you can use this with AI and use an auto eject to tell them to disembark as soon as they hit down. So there you have it. That's a basic run through on how to use the UnitCapture and UnitPlay commands and functions in Operation Arrowhead. Okay, that's about it. If you've got any questions or comments on this video, or if you want a tiny bit of help, I might be able to, but I can't promise I'll be up to scratch on everything. I will be having a look at doing the attack runs using this feature, and hopefully you'll see another tutorial video on this soon. Okay, cheers.